Hey, what's good? A lot of times when I talk to people and I explain to them that, powers that be want to put something in your brain that's going to let you basically, you'll be able to think and your car will unlock, and then you walk into a store and everything will just be on this chip, right? And everyone thinks, oh, science fiction and all this stuff. And then Elon Musk has Neuralink and all that stuff, right? So I wanted to watch a video where we, one, take a look at Neuralink to see what it is that it really is. And I found a video that's on Wired from 3 years ago. And this time we're going to watch two videos, because then I found an update video from the guy that got the computer chip installed in his brain. And now he's able to control the computer with his brain. And he's paralyzed from the neck down and stuff. So let's take a look. Everybody thought I was crazy. And I know there's a lot of folks out there that, oh, I already knew about this. Yes, I know. I'm trying to get everybody else caught up. So I'm going to be working on a commissioned art piece. Before we get into it, remember to go to coconutjustice.com to get you some clothes I think would look good on you. Let's go. Yes, sir. Neuralink. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if I'm comfortable. Like the thought of this would be cool, because like imagine you just like everything just gets easier. You don't have to touch things. But at the same time, like how far are we going to push the human experience? How like long term, what's this going to do to humanity? And again, I'm not one that's against AI. I'm not one that's against technology all the way. I'm just thinking, like, where are we going with this? Because to a certain extent, it would be cool to be able to communicate with literally everyone on the planet. And the natural hurdles of language and distance and all that stuff. But at the same time, we don't even know how to handle social media and technology and devices and stuff like that. So what are we going to do when we are a device? Let's find out.
Neuralink, Elon Musk's brain chip company, recently pushed back on claims that it violated animal welfare laws a few years ago while testing on
Hell.
monkeys. This year, the company plans to test on human subjects. But when it does, what would this major step mean for brain implant science?
Academics like me have conducted clinical trials in people with brain implants.
Dr. Paul Niyajukian is a professor of bioengineering and neurosurgery. He directs the brain interfacing laboratory at Stanford.
Yo, tell me that's not exactly like the Matrix. What? What is going on? No, come on, man.
Academic research brain implants, up until this point, more or less, have almost exclusively been with wires. The difference that the N1 has, that Neuralink, it's
solar
fully
powered.
implantable, it is battery powered, it is wireless. All of this is being done over Bluetooth protocol.
Let's dive into the science behind Neuralink to understand how exactly human...
So now if it's battery powered, what? Like, are you going to be laying your head on a charging pad? You're turning into an iPhone. What?
chips work.
The science behind how these implants work is not that different from how you would go about trying to measure the energy from a AA battery. It's the same principle that we're doing with these brain implants. This is called neuroelectrophysiological recording. When you move your arm to the right, certain sets of neurons are activated in a certain pattern. Listening in to that activity and that pattern, you can predict very quickly which direction the arm is going to move. These are the neurons that are directly wired to your mind.
So this goes out to those folks that don't think that like energy and like energy medicine and even magnets and even what's it called, like horoscopes and stuff like that, the movement of the moon and stuff like that. All of this stuff is like electrical impulses, and not that I subscribe to any of those things that I just got done talking about, but that's why it's stuff like this that makes you wonder, or that makes you think about that, and how how different things affect your mood. I don't know. I like to be even keel. I like to think that maybe it's like sometimes I'm in a bad mood, not because the moon is over there, but maybe because I had Taco Bell. I don't know. I don't know. And shout out Taco Bell. I'm not hating on Taco Bell. That's my go-to spot. That's the thing. Like, I have a Taco Bell problem. But those electrical impulses that happen in my stomach after I have a taco, you know, like if the food that you put into your body affects you that way, the external stuff probably affects you that way too. Like electricity will kill you if you have it too much. But if if you turn it into a massage or whatever, it's that energy that goes in there that makes your muscles pulse, and then that's what they're explaining. Like these electrical impulses that your brain is doing to make your arm do a certain thing. Yeah. So if electricity, I think that's the point that I'm trying to make, right? Is if we have electrical impulses and stuff like that, and electricity can affect our muscles and stimulate us in different ways and control your brain in different ways, then wouldn't magnets and like the pull of the moon, wouldn't that, am I off base here? You guys let me know in the comments.
Unless that pathway from the brain to the spinal cord to the muscle is damaged, the way it is in patients with paralysis.
That pathway is damaged, then the neural signals, the signals from the brain, aren't going to get down to move the muscles. But in many cases, the signals are still present in the brain. They're just not getting out. So if you reach in and put something that listens in to those neurons, and you know what's happening to the muscle.
And that's the goal of a brain implant. Now let's look at a timeline of brain interface breakthroughs over the years.
Did you guys know that the hole in a wine barrel is called a bunghole?
I've long been interested in how the brain works, so it's important to view these new developments at Neuralink as a culmination of breakthroughs by brain-machine interface researchers, especially in the last few decades. For example, in 2002, the first demonstration of real-time cursor control in monkeys took place. 2008, a monkey controlling a robotic arm in 3 dimensions fed itself.
In 2010, that monkey was able to fix its own email account.
The first brain-controlled robotic arm by a human. 2017, a human controlled a cursor mentally to type out words and sentences.
Oh, there you go.
Dr.
2017
was part of this study, as well as the one in 2018, where a human subject mentally controlled a tablet to do things like browse the web, send emails, and play games or music.
All of that's been done with a couple hundred electrodes.
But in 2019, Neuralink, a private company, changed the game when it unveiled a pig named Gertrude with a wireless implant that monitored about 1,000 neurons.
Gertrude.
The neurons are like wiring, and you kind of need an electronic thing to solve an electronic problem.
That was a very interesting moment because it signaled to the community that they're serious.
I like that Elon. This other one that just popped his head out earlier in the year, we can leave that Elon back there. We need Elon right here.
They're investing, they're building hardware from scratch, and they're putting it in large animals. For the pig, the electrodes were implanted in somatosensory cortex, allowing them to measure sensory activity, like that of taking a step. Every time that particular neuron they were listening to fired, you would hear this little pop or click from the audio channel. And so the moment I heard it, right, it's like, oh yeah, they got neurons. You just recognize it instantly. You know what neurons sound like if you've been listening to them for decades. And that's what they were communicating, right? They were telling the field, we've got neurons, pay attention.
And overnight, it seemed the industry took notice. Then, in April of 2021, Neuralink released the so-called Mind Pong video.
Pager was the name. It's a rhesus macaque, which is the type of monkey that is very common.
What about macaque?
Implanted with 2 of the N1 devices, the Neuralink devices, performing brain control of a cursor on a screen. That's extremely significant because here Neuralink is showing their new hardware, their new device in their hands, works in a monkey. That's the level that's necessary to convince the scientific community, to convince the FDA that you're ready to go into human clinical trial.
If this was the movies, they would have someone in the background playing Pong. Just making sure that it looked really cool so then that way they can trick people into investing in them.
That's the evidence the FDA is looking for.
The recording power of the N1 device in Pager was eye-opening because of the sheer number of individual electrodes that had been implanted.
There
That
was
thing is pretty
definitely
big.
a lot of clever engineering that went into that to build a device that can transmit 2048 electrodes worth of spiking information, right, of digital ones and zeros of spikes over a radio wirelessly. And when you have that many channels, the performance that you should be able to get should eclipse what we've been able to do in the academic field. The maximum number of electrodes I've ever recorded from is 200 to 300.
So with all those electrodes, how does a device like the N1 get implanted in a subject's brain?
Make no mistake, this is neurosurgery. It is not a joke. This requires cutting the skin, getting down to skull, drilling a hole in the skull, exposing what's called the dura, which is this protective layer of tissue that surrounds the brain, cutting the dura, folding it back to expose the brain, and then you get to the surface of the brain where you can implant the electrodes.
Oh
The
my
biggest
goodness.
risks with these types of techniques are infection, bleeding, and tissue damage.
So what would it take for the FDA to approve clinical trials in humans?
The Neuralink device are called class 3 medical devices. They are implantable and they're going into very sensitive body cavities. That is the highest level of scrutiny that the FDA assigns to medical devices. They don't have a predecessor. There's no previous example that's approved. And so, very appropriately, they got a high bar they have to cross in order to get it approved. So what Neuralink has to do next is prepare a very long and technical document with all the evidence from animal studies that their device is safe and effective. This document is submitted to the FDA, who has 90 days to review and give them an answer. If the FDA says yes, then their clinical trial is approved and Neuralink can enroll and recruit human participants. We're on the cusp of a complete paradigm shift. This type of technology has the potential to transform our treatments, not just for stroke and paralysis and degenerative disease, motor degenerative diseases, but also for pretty much every other type of brain disease, from Parkinson's to epilepsy to dementias, Alzheimer's, and even psychiatric disease. Seeing Neuralink and the other companies in this space start an industry around neuroengineering, brain-machine interfaces, neuroprosthetics, has been a tremendous amount of validation for neuroscientists and engineers who have been working in this space for decades. How much happier could the scientific community be than to give birth to an industry?
So will this
They're going to finish in a minute. We'll hear them out.
industry someday lead to the creation of cyborg humans with superhuman intelligence?
Nah.
There's all sorts of wild speculation in our field. I think science fiction is wonderful at telling very creative and captivating stories about all sorts of things, including brain-machine interfaces. The reality is we are in such early stages of this space, right, where we are just barely able to record from neurons that control muscles and try to interpret something, glean meaningful information out of that. We're going to be in that space for decades. That's where I will focus much of my career, is understanding what's going on with these neurons and the circuits that they are working on. That's where the last 15 years of my work has been, and the coming several decades of my work will focus in on this space because that's going to be the forefront of neuroscience. The rest, I think, is fun to think about, but I don't see how that's going to be in the foreseeable future.
Well, that's wild. I'm not 100% sure how I feel about that. How about you guys? Let me know. Because I can see where that would be beneficial. Imagine having, instead of having to go through your iPhone, you just think of a thing, who's president in 1970? You would have instant access to what's hopefully good information or solid information or whatever they say, true facts or whatever it is. But at the same time, like, maybe I'm a traditionalist. Maybe I'm team human, if you believe in the Bible, we tried this before. We Tower of Babel, and we got a little too cocky, and God came down and hit the reset button at least a little bit. That was a soft reset. But whether or not you believe that really, really happened, the lesson is still there. And so, yeah, like they have the powers that be have everyone convinced that we have to get there before China does. And it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. But again, like, it all depends on who's going to be feeding the information into this thing that we are all accessing. Who's going to be in control of all of that? Hopefully I'm too old for any of this stuff. And by the time we get to that point where everyone is being forced to get this thing, hopefully I'm too old and nobody cares. I thought this was very interesting. Let's take a look at the update, though. Let's see, because if they had this stuff, that 3 years ago, let's take a look at the update, because I'm sure like they probably have these people looking through walls and stuff. Going back in.
In January, Elon Musk announced his company Neuralink had successfully implanted a chip in a human. That person is now sharing how his life has changed since. Will Reeve with the story.
I didn't have anything to wake up for in the morning, and this has changed that for me.
In a GMA broadcast exclusive, Noland Arbaugh, the first human implanted with a Neuralink chip in his brain, is telling his story.
I accepted that I was paralyzed and that was my life. I always held out hope that it would all get better.
At 22 years old, Noland says he dove headfirst in waist-deep water, struck something, and sustained a spinal cord injury. He couldn't move from the shoulders down.
From the time of your injury until earlier this year, what was your daily life like?
I mean, one thing about being paralyzed is that there's a lot of time to sit and think. And so I thought through basically my whole life and realized all the mistakes I'd made and what I could do better.
Then, just last year, Noland, now 30, receiving a life-changing opportunity.
One day, one of my buddies from college called me up. We talked pretty regularly, and he was like, hey, Neuralink, they opened up the human trials. And I said, what's Neuralink?
Neuralink, co-founded by Elon Musk,
That's a very good question.
is an experimental implantable brain-computer interface, or BCI, a chip surgically implanted by a robot and connected by threads to a patient's brain that allows the patient to control a computer or smartphone with their mind.
This is all from there to there.
Yeah, man.
Wow.
Neuralink is not the only company working on this technology. Several others are also testing their BCIs in paralyzed volunteers. Noland now joins that small group as Neuralink's first patient.
I was just very happy that I would be a part of something that I believe is so monumental and this next step forward of helping people with paralysis.
What can you do now with the chip implanted that you could not do prior?
I can control a computer just like anyone else can, which is not something I was able to do beforehand.
Watch one of these video game companies hire him, since he'll be playing Call of Duty and just think about killing.
Yeah, man.
That's awesome. Do you worry because
That's
you are the
bananas.
first patient that something unforeseen could go wrong now that this is inside your head?
I wouldn't say worry. It was something where I knew that if I did this, then it would take a lot of headache and heartache away from the people down the road.
Just last week, news that some of the threads in Nolan's brain had
mean,
retracted.
Yeah, like if you're a fan of science, or like even if you're not a fan of science, if someone says you can take your life and do something super adventurous like this, I think I would, in a situation like this, I think I would make that decision as well. My current state, I don't know. I don't know if controlling a computer with my brain is cool enough to have you tap dancing within my skull. I don't know. That one's a weird one.
The performance of the device.
How'd you take the news when they told you that the threads had retracted?
Yeah, it was really hard. It was very, very hard to give up all of the amazing things that I was able to do. I think I had like cried basically afterwards.
The problem becoming an opportunity for the makers of Neuralink to explore solutions.
The reason we do clinical trial and early feasibility trial is to uncover these sort of issues as early as possible before they get marketed. And we rolled up our sleeves and found various different ways to for Nolan be able to recover his performance, which we have successfully been able to do.
As for Nolan, the future of the technology only looks bright.
It's going to be amazing when someone can have a spinal cord injury, go into a hospital, get surgery, and walk out a couple days later. I think it's going to happen. I don't think it's as far away as people might think.
I mean, that one's good. That's a very good question. Imagine being out somewhere and something happens and you're able to go to the hospital and you just, I don't know, update software or I don't know. It's interesting. It's an interesting dilemma, but these are the conversations that we need to be having as a society. All this goofy stuff that everyone is fighting over right now is just silly. Tomorrow's here. And we're still arguing about the color of your skin. And tomorrow is here. Nobody's listening. But, you'll learn one way or another. You're going to learn. I hope you liked this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, share it with each and every one of your friends. And if you want to come hang out with me and watch videos while I work on creative projects, hit that subscribe button. Then change the little bell icon so it says all. That way, every time I come out with something new, you'll be alerted. Don't forget to go to coconutjustice.com to get you some dope gear. And with that, I'm out.